on JacksonNorth.com.
What do you see in the Platinum Plan they released that mentions that mirrors anything that's in yours? Do you believe that the Trump campaign greatly overstated your involvement for the purpose of them being able to say, we have attached ourselves to Ice Cube? Did you believe that you were used politically for their purposes as opposed to really what happened?
Look, I knew whoever I engaged with would use that politically. I don't care about that part. The part I care about is getting something done. Look, my plan is called the Contract with Black America. So all of them lacking.
Welcome back to AM Joy. I'm Tiffany Cross. Rapper and actor Ice Cube, who built his career rapping in defiance about the police, made waves this week when the Trump campaign announced he had contributed to Trump's Platinum Plan, which is supposed to increase access to capital in Black communities. Does it, though? Ice Cube says both the Trump and Joe Biden campaign reached out to him about his own contract with Black America. This, as both candidates are ramping up their efforts to appeal to Black voters, specifically at the 11th hour, Black men, less than 3 weeks before Election Day. Now, Trump won 8% of the Black voters in 2016, and recent Pew polling shows Black men are almost twice as likely to vote for Trump as Black women. And polling from Hit Strategy shows 18% of Black men under 50 support Trump's reelection. As more and more Black artists speak out about the election, the race to secure Black voters is exposing a widening chasm in how Black men and women in pop culture and elsewhere approach politics. Joining me now, civil trial and criminal defense attorney Midwin Charles, Lindsey Granger, co-host of the nationally syndicated television show Daily Blast Live, one of my faves, senior writer at Rolling Stone, Jamil Smith, political contributor at The Griot, and MSNBC contributor and my nemesis, the Newman to my Seinfeld, Dr. Jason Johnson, and pollster and partner at Hit Strategies, Terrence Woodbury. You guys, all of our group chats were blowing up all week, so I'm so excited to have this conversation with all of you. Jamil, I want to start with you because you actually spoke with Ice Cube. You interviewed him for Rolling Stone. Great interview, by the way. Good job on getting that get. And one thing that struck me about his conversation with you and Roland Martin, I want to be careful here. I don't want to drag this brother. I don't want to say that Black men are overwhelmingly voting for Republicans. They're not. They overwhelmingly vote for Democrats. He's simply trying to position Black people at the center of political power. However, his efforts seem a bit misguided, and it looks like he got played a little bit. But Jamil, you talked to him. What's your takeaway?
Well, my takeaway, Tiffany, is that he, in that effort to center Black folks at, in the economy of ideas, he is unfortunately equating the wrongs of both sides of the political equation. He is saying Democrats have done us wrong, Republicans have done us wrong, and thus we need to, essentially divest ourselves of both of them until they earn our votes. Well, essentially, we got less than 20 days until this election. How are they going to earn our votes? Well, Joe Biden can't propose legislation right now in order to earn our votes. What is he going to say? And I think, frankly, I thought his approach to Ice Cube as Ice Cube described it to me seemed to make sense. He said he agreed with 85% of the plan and said he would address the plan after he's elected, if he's elected. To me, that makes practical sense. He says, I'm going to act upon these objectives if I'm president. That, to me, says I'm not going to promise you what I can't deliver.
All right. Terrence, I want to bring you in. First of all, I'm so excited you're on the show with me. I've been wanting to have you on while I'm in a chair for a long time. Your research about Black men and the Trump administration is mind-blowing. Every time you send out information, I'm just blown away. Tell me why Trump is making inroads with a small fraction of Black men.
Thanks for having me, Tiffany. That's an important point, right, is that the overwhelming majority of Black men are supporting Donald Trump and supporting Democrats up and down the ballot. But are supporting Joe Biden. But Donald Trump is not trying to win a majority of Black men. He's trying to just kind of chip away at the margins here and put together a new coalition. And I knew during the Super Bowl in February, when he spent $11 million to have Alice Johnson come on TV after being in jail for 22 years and say, thank you, Donald J. Trump, for releasing me. I knew then that black men were not a marginal part of his strategy. They were his path to victory. And since then, we have seen his campaign go from spending $55,000 on criminal justice Facebook ads before George Floyd's death to spending $6.6 million on criminal justice Facebook ads. And I want to be clear about what those Facebook ads say, because every single one of them is structured the exact same way. Democrats have failed you. Joe Biden has failed you, and that is why your president signed the First Step Act. What he's doing is redefining Democrats to a segment of the black male voters that are cynical towards Democrats, that are frustrated towards Democrats, and he's really starting to chip away a margin. And what concerns me the most, because Joe Biden has put together a coalition that I do think can deliver him to victory, even if he gets 75 to 80% of the black male votes. But that will not deliver the Senate. Gary Peters cannot win Michigan with 75% of black men's votes.
Well, you talked about, Terrence, in your research, because we have to consider this is down ballot races as well. And your Hit Strategies found that support among black men when it comes to senators has increased, which I found quite fascinating as well. Ladies, I'm going to bring you in, but I want to start with the men since we're talking about this outreach to black men voters. Let me turn to you, Dr. Johnson, my friend. You made some really interesting comments with our pal, Joy Reid, and you said that you think Donald Trump thinks that black men are stupid. Expand on that, because it does seem like there's a reason why he's going after black men. And I had Bruce Lavelle on this show and asked, what does outreach to black women look like? Is there any outreach? And he got a little tongue-tied. Why the focus on black men from this particular administration? I don't think it's an effort to get them to vote for him as much as it's appearance. But what do you think?
No, Trump, and you're right, Tiffany, Trump's goal isn't necessarily to get black men to vote for him. Trump's goal is to play into the cynicism that black men legitimately have towards this country, right? Because we've been mistreated by almost every single group of people in this country. We've been let down by the government. His goal is, if I can't get your vote, I want you to be cynical enough that you don't vote at all. And I'm going to make sure that happens by, I don't know, making it harder to vote around the country, not doing anything about COVID, which is killing black men at a rate higher than we died, during the Middle Passage. And then on top of that, using these sort of false equivalencies to say that Joe Biden is just as bad as Donald Trump. Donald Trump, who in the 1970s was discriminating against people. Donald Trump, who in the 1980s was saying the exonerated five should be executed. Donald Trump, who has called on white nationalists to keep black people from voting. Donald Trump, whose Justice Department hasn't done anything about George Floyd, hasn't done anything about Breonna Taylor, hasn't done anything about Sandra Bland. So for Donald Trump to reach out to Ice Cube or Steve Harvey or Jim Brown or anybody else like that and say, I'm the better option, he must think we're stupid. He must think we're not paying attention to what the man has actually done. And I want to say this really quick, Tiffany, because I think it's important. I understand the cynicism. I understand the frustration. But what we also can't do as entertainers in the black community is come up with a plan in the 11th hour of a campaign and put marshmallows and chocolate and graham crackers together and think we created s'mores. No, you didn't. There are tons of plans out there that Ice Cube could have tackled onto beforehand, and that's one of the issues here as well.
I mean, I think that's the frustrating part, right? Because the Congressional Black Caucus has a very comprehensive plan. Our friend Alicia Garza, one of the founders of Black Lives Matter, has a very comprehensive plan. So the hubris that Ice Cube, am going to come in and save the day for Black America, and he quite frankly looked a little out of his league when Roland Martin was pressing him on some of these issues. And I encourage everybody to watch that interview with Roland Martin. It was great. Midwin, let me turn to you. Was this a misstep on the Biden campaign's behalf? Because their outreach is not as public. Their outreach is not as visible as Donald Trump is. And now they're stuck in this scramble to try to make inroads with a community perhaps they maybe ignored.
It could be. I mean, if you look at over the past years, in the last two presidential elections, the number of black men who have been voting Republican has increased just slightly, right? From, Mitt Romney, McCain, and now Trump in 2016. But I also want to point out that as much as people talk about, Donald Trump siphoning off votes with black men are still the number one male group to have voted against Donald Trump in 2016.
Right. Exactly.
More than Latinos, more than Asians, and more than other groups. However, the Biden campaign should always be trying to get the vote of black men. And listen, I know that a lot of people criticize Ice Cube. I have as well. But I welcome anyone who wants to take a seat at the table and start talking about these issues that the African-American community is facing and how we can address them, particularly when you have such a huge platform such as Ice Cube. However, it's important to make sure that you understand how government works.
Right.
For example, a lot of the things in Ice Cube's plan have already been done by the Democratic House, voted on, and are sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk right now and haven't been voted on by a Republican-controlled majority in the Senate. So it's important, I think, for people to understand that our government is not a transactional government, as much as Donald Trump wants it to be. It's not quid pro quo. It's not, I show up at the table, give me this, give me that. It's a process. It's procedure. A bill is voted on by the House, then voted on by the Senate, then signed by the president. That's the way it works. And so it's important to understand that while Donald Trump, on the one hand, might be shining around the First Step Act,
right,
it's important to understand, on the other hand, that the PPP loans, 90% of black businesses that applied for that were denied. 40% of black businesses have been lost as a result of COVID. The Department of Justice under this administration has ended all consent decrees with police departments that have been investigating, the killing of black men. Under this administration, our right to vote has been curtailed in ways that I have never, ever seen before.
Yeah,
Donald Trump's campaign right now has multiple lawsuits in multiple states trying to reduce our ways to vote, whether it's mail-in ballots, whether it's witnesses required. So you have to watch both hands. You
I agree.
Focus
we
on
have
the
to,
one hand that's filling up.
So I think, it's interesting because Donald Trump, his first job in government was as president of the United States, and his team talking to Ice Cube, who has never had any real engagement in politics, is scary, but you don't want to be snobby to people who are trying to be a part of the process, So I hear you on that, Midwin. I completely agree. I think that's an important point. Lindsay, I have to ask you, our friend Jamel Hill tweeted out, she asked the question, is it me or is the energy different between black men and black women around politics, around this campaign? And I said, it's not just you, because I feel it a little bit too. You look at, on one hand, you had Megan Thee Stallion write this amazing op-ed in the New York Times this week, which was great. I commend her. It was all about, letting black women lead. You have Diddy coming out with his own political party. And then you have Ice Cube. I just look at these efforts and they all look different to me. What have you noticed about not just black men and black women in pop culture, but just in your own orbits? Is the attitude different?
Yeah, I think I look at Megan Thee Stallion's piece and I think about a lot of things that women are voting for. When we talk about black women, they're thinking about how when they have a baby, they're facing mortality and thinking about healthcare and bigger picture issues. And so although a lot of people were not so enthused by the idea of Joe Biden, a lot of black women were like, listen, we have two options. We have a person that was not standing by our side and has shown us what they're going to do. And then Kamala, who's in the vice presidential chair, that perhaps is going to have our back and is owning up to some faults she made in the past that may stand up for black women. And I think for black men, when you have Ice Cube, he reached out to Joe Biden, and Joe Biden gave him unsatisfactory response saying, hey, we're going to push this to the side and we'll get back to this later. And I understand the frustration. I mean, being with a black man telling me all the time that we're not getting the response that we were looking for from government and for anybody. But to reach out to President Trump, and you made a record in 2018 saying arrest the president, talking about denouncing white supremacy. And in the last couple of weeks, President Trump failed to denounce white supremacy. I think it's a confusing idea that it comes from the person who stood up for us so strongly throughout the entire 90s with everything that he stood for. So that's kind of the pushback. I know in Ice Cube's plan, he had 13 solid points that went into detail about how he wanted broadcast networks to be 20% black, how he wanted, police reform in totality. And then when we look at President Trump's platinum plan, it's extremely vague and leaving us hanging dry. And then we have Joe Biden's answer that's saying we'll get to it later. And so I understand why people are frustrated, because to me, aside from coronavirus, Black lives are the most important thing in this election.
I think that's a number one issue a lot of folks are taking in the ballot box. Jamil, I'm going to circle back to you. Do you think the energy is different? Is there a gender difference in how our community is looking at this race?
Well, I think that, certainly there are, different goals within those communities. I think, certainly Black women are seeking to, survive in different ways. I mean, they have a lot more concerns. We have concerns of domestic violence. We have concerns that specifically address Black women, that don't address that, frankly, Black men either don't need to be worried about or are, frankly, part of the danger.
Right.
And so we need to be concerned as Black men for them, and need to be concerned about how we can be a part of the solution. Now, just addressing something that Lindsay brought up, I just wanted to make sure that I bring this up. I asked Ice Cube specifically, what did he bring to the table when he spoke with the Trump people that they incorporated into the platinum plan? How did he change it?
Right.
And he said essentially the only thing really he brought up, that was actually concrete, that he sought up, he said they changed some terms, minority, became Black and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, to me, we're talking about changing terminology here. I mean, you look at that plan, I mean, it's just a list of vagaries.
Right.
We eliminate health disparities.
Exactly.
In a Trump plan, Trump is trying to eliminate Obamacare.
Right. We're running out of time. I just want to give Jason a really quick opportunity to respond. Do you think the energy is different between Black men and Black women around this election?
I think there is, and one thing we want to make really clear, and this is what Ice Cube is speaking for, there is a strand of Black men, straight Black men in America, there's a strand of them who feel that they have been ignored, that they're constantly called toxic, and that they're blamed for everything bad that happens in the community. That is who Ice Cube is speaking for. Now, we can have debates as to whether or not those criticisms are necessary or reasonable, but those guys have to vote too. Those men have to be spoken to too. And to the degree that we continue to demonize certain groups of people who may not be the most politically informed but are still passionate, we hurt ourselves as a community. So I have my criticisms for Ice Cube. I certainly have criticisms for Trump, but we got to remember, all of us win if all of us are included in this process.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of politicians can go talk to NASCAR dads. They ought to be able to go talk to a lot of people in the Black community as well. So thank you, guys. Look, this could be a whole hour panel. There was so much we didn't get to that I wanted to, so we'll have to take it back to the group chat and to Twitter to keep talking about it. But you all provided such a robust conversation, so thank you so much. Thank you, Midwin Charles. So happy we finally got to share the screen together. Lindsay Granger, Jamil Smith, my friend, Jason Johnson, and Terrence Woodbury. I don't know how folks can find Terrence Woodbury's website or info, but I promise you he has fascinating information about polls. I see your plug, my brother. Good. Thank you all for a great conversation. Next up, a close